The galaxy was on the brink of disaster. For years, the alien empire, led by the powerful alien king, had been expanding its reach. Planets fell one after another, unable to stop the might of the alien forces. Humanity had fought many battles, but the war against the alien king's empire seemed hopeless. Their fleet was small, and the aliens had advanced technology that outmatched Earth's weapons, but the humans weren't ready to give up, led by Admiral Sarah Williams' humanities. Forces had made a desperate stand at the edge of their solar system. The battle that unfolded was intense, and many lives were lost. The human ships, though outgunned, fought fiercely, driven by their will to survive. They knew that if the alien king was not stopped, their home planet would be next, in the final moments of the battle, when it seemed all was lost, the humans made a bold move. Using an old trick, they lured the alien flagship into a trap, causing it to crash into a nearby asteroid field. The crash wasn't enough to destroy the mighty ship, but it gave humanity the chance they needed to strike a critical blow. The flagship disabled. The alien king's forces were thrown into chaos. Admiral Williams ordered her fleet to engage, and in a last-ditch effort, they managed to destroy the remaining alien ships. The battle was won, but at a great cost. The fleet was left in ruins, and the human soldiers who survived the fight were shaken. When the dust settled, Admiral Williams stood on the bridge of her flagship, staring out at the wreckage. The alien king's fleet had been defeated, but the cost was heavy. The alien ships with their advanced technology had done significant damage to Earth's defenses. Humanity had won, but the war was far from over. As the Admiral prepared to return to Earth, a transmission from the alien king himself came through. His voice was calm, but filled with the pride of a ruler who had lost, but still held power. "You may have won the battle, but the war is not over." The alien king's voice echoed across the screen. "You've taken my ships, but you have not taken my life, and that, human, is what matters most." Admiral Williams didn't flinch. "We'll finish this, alien king. We're not afraid of you or your empire." The alien king's eyes narrowed. "I will not ask for mercy. I offer you a deal, Admiral. You may have defeated me today, but my life is worth more than just another war. If you spare me, I will offer you something no other species in the galaxy has. I will give you my daughter. She will come to your planet, to your people. You will have peace for as long as she remains." Admiral Williams was stunned. The offer was unexpected, and at first it didn't make sense. Why would the alien king, after losing so much, offer something so valuable, and why his daughter? She looked at the image of the alien king on the screen. He was a tall, imposing figure with dark eyes that seemed to burn with power. His face was hardened from years of ruling his empire, but there was something else in his eyes. Regret, perhaps, or maybe something deeper. "Your daughter?" she asked slowly, still processing his words. "Why would you do this?" Alien King's voice softened. "Because my empire is no more. I am all that remains of a once great species. My daughter, she is the future of my people. And if she is to survive, it must be among you, the humans." His voice hardened again. "I offer her to you in exchange for my life. Take her, and let us avoid another war. You may never have to face the wrath of my empire again." Admiral Williams wasn't sure what to think. Could she trust him? Could she trust that this offer was genuine, or was it a trick? But the offer was clear. The alien king's daughter would come to Earth, and with her, perhaps the key to long-lasting peace. After a long silence, Williams nodded. "We'll spare your life, but your daughter will be brought here under our terms. She will be treated as a guest, not a prisoner. We'll see what kind of future she wants with humanity." The alien king stared at her for a moment, his gaze unreadable. Then, without another word, the transmission ended. The room was silent as the weight of the decision settled on everyone's shoulders. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The alien king would live, and humanity would face a new challenge: the arrival of his daughter. Admiral Williams knew that this was only the beginning. She had no idea what would happen when the alien princess arrived on Earth. But one thing was certain: this unexpected turn in the war had the potential to change everything. The world held its breath as the day approached. The news of the alien king's surprising offer had spread like wildfire across Earth, despite the skepticism of many. The human leaders had agreed to the deal. The alien princess, the daughter of the defeated king, would be sent to Earth. In the days leading up to her arrival, people whispered about the mysterious princess. Who was she? What would she be like? Some feared she would be a spy, sent to infiltrate humanity's defenses. Others believed she might be a powerful weapon, capable of destroying them from within. But there were also those who hoped this could be the beginning of something new, something peaceful. Admiral Sarah Williams had the difficult task of preparing Earth for the princess's arrival. The government had insisted that she be placed under strict supervision, but Admiral Williams saw it differently. She believed the alien princess should be treated as a symbol of peace, not as an enemy. I want her to feel welcome, the Admiral told her staff. She may be the key to a future where humans and aliens can live together peacefully. We have to show her that Earth isn't the enemy. On the day of her arrival, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. The alien ship descended through the sky, its sleek, unfamiliar design unlike anything humanity had ever seen. It landed in a remote area away from the major cities, in an effort to reduce any risk of panic. A small team of Earth's top diplomats and military personnel stood ready to greet her. The doors of the alien ship slowly opened, and a figure stepped out. The alien princess, tall and elegant, stood in the doorway. Her features were delicate, her skin a smooth shade of light purple, and her long hair shimmered like starlight. Her eyes, large and almond-shaped, seemed to carry the weight of an entire empire. She was beautiful, yet there was something more to her, a sense of sadness. A quiet strength hidden behind her calm expression. The first to approach her was Admiral Williams, who stepped forward with a firm handshake. She had prepared for this moment, but even she couldn't hide the curiosity that rose within her. The alien princess was nothing like she had imagined. You are welcome here, princess, the Admiral said, offering a warm smile. I'm Admiral Sarah Williams. I'm in charge of overseeing your stay on Earth. The princess looked at the Admiral for a moment before speaking in perfect English, her voice smooth and melodic. I do not wish to be a burden, Admiral. Have come to fulfill my father's promise. I am at your service as long as it is needed. Our words were calm, but there was a quiet strength in them. It was clear that she was not here by choice, but out of duty. Her father's empire may have fallen, but she was still the princess, a figure of authority. Even if her empire was no more, your father's promise was a bold one, the Admiral said, leading the princess to the waiting vehicle. Many of us have doubts, but we will honor the deal. I understand, the princess replied softly. But I am not my father. I am here because I believe there is a chance for peace. The drive to the base where she would stay was silent, with both the Admiral and the princess lost in their own thoughts. As they passed through the landscape, the princess marveled at the green fields, the blue sky, and the bustling cities below. It was all so different from the cold, harsh world she had known. For the first time, she wondered if perhaps humanity was capable of something more than war. Upon arriving at the base, the princess was escorted to a large, luxurious suite. The room was designed to make her feel at home, with a mix of human and alien decorations. It was an attempt to blend both worlds, to create a place where she could feel safe and comfortable. But the princess knew that no matter how well the room was designed, she would never truly feel at home here as she sat. On the couch, she gazed out of the large windows that overlooked the vast, open landscape. Her thoughts were far from her new surroundings. She wondered what the future would hold for her and for humanity. Could they truly build a lasting peace, or would this fragile alliance be torn apart by fear and distrust? The alien technology that had once been a source of fear for humans now seemed like a distant memory. The people of Earth were no longer focused on the alien ships or their weapons. Instead, they were focused on the princess, the daughter of the alien king who had given up everything for peace. The princess wasn't sure what her future held. She was caught between two worlds, her duty to her father and her desire for something different. But as she sat in her new home, She couldn't help but wonder if perhaps Earth could be the place where she found what she had been searching for. A chance to start over. Admiral Williams visited her later that evening, bringing her a small gift, a book filled with stories of Earth's history and achievements. The princess accepted the gift graciously, her eyes scanning the cover before looking back at the admiral. "You've made an effort," she said, her voice soft. "I did not expect this." "We are trying," the admiral replied. "This is just the beginning. I hope you'll find peace here." The princess nodded, though her mind was still heavy with the future. For now, she would stay silent, learning, observing, and hoping. The coming days would determine whether peace was truly possible, or if her presence would lead to a new kind of war. One that could destroy everything humanity had worked so hard to build. The alien princess's arrival had shaken Earth. The news spread quickly, reaching every corner of the planet. People were both fascinated and fearful. Some saw her as a symbol of peace, while others believed she was the first step toward a new war. The tension in the air was palpable. It was clear that this was a critical moment in human history, one that could either unite the galaxy or tear it apart. Admiral Williams and the world's leaders had to tread carefully. The princess, though quiet and reserved, was still the daughter of the alien king, a ruler who had led his empire to attack humanity. She was, in a sense, a living reminder of the war they had just won. No one could forget the pain her people had caused, but no one could ignore the potential she held. Could she really be the key to peace, or would she become another weapon in the hands of a defeated empire? Over the weeks, the princess spent most of her time learning about Earth and its people. She was fascinated by the diversity of cultures, languages, and history. The humans she met were curious about her as well. They often asked her questions about her home planet, about her father's empire, and about the alien ways of life. She answered them all as honestly as she could, though there were many things she could not share. There were still many secrets. She had yet to understand secrets that her father had kept from her. During this time, Princess began to form bonds with some of the humans, particularly with Admiral Williams. The two of them spent long hours together, talking about their respective worlds. Williams would tell her stories about Earth's past, the wars, the peace, the struggles, and the victories. The princess shared what little she knew about her own world, her father's rise to power, and the challenges her people had faced. Though their worlds were vastly different, they both had experienced loss and hardship. One evening, after a long day of discussions, the admiral and the princess stood together on the balcony of the base, looking out at the stars. Was silent, lost in thought. "Do you ever wonder what could have been?" the princess asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "If my father had chosen peace instead of war. If we had never fought?" Admiral Williams thought for a moment before answering. "I think every nation, every people, have to ask themselves that question. We all wonder what might have been. But the past is behind us. We can't change it. All we can do is decide what to do now." The princess nodded, her gaze still fixed on the stars. "And what do you think should be done now?" "Now we have to find a way to move forward. We have to work together, even if it's hard. That's what peace is. Not forgetting the past, but learning from it and building something better." "Da!" The princess turned to face her, her eyes shining with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "And you think humanity's ready for that?" "Have to be," Williams replied, her voice firm. "Peace isn't easy, but it's the only way forward." For the first time, the princess felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it was possible. Maybe Earth could be a place where peace could truly be achieved. But there were still so many challenges ahead. She knew that her presence, while meant to be a symbol of peace, could also be a source of tension. Some would never trust her, and some would never forgive her people for the war they had waged. The next few days brought new challenges. There were protests outside the base, with people shouting that the princess should be sent back to her home planet, that no peace could come from her. There were whispers of rebellion from factions within the military, those who saw the alien presence as a threat. And there were those who were still angry about the destruction the alien empire had caused. Admiral Williams worked tirelessly to keep the peace. She met with world leaders, spoke with the military, and did everything she could to maintain calm. But it was becoming clear that the situation was fragile. The princess's arrival had created an uneasy balance. One wrong move could tip it into chaos. Meanwhile, the princess herself was struggling with her own doubts. Every time she walked through the halls of the base, she could feel the eyes of the soldiers on her, their distrust and fear heavy in the air. She had hoped to be a symbol of peace, but she knew that her presence also carried the weight of her father's empire. How could she convince humanity that she was different, that she wanted peace just as much as they did? One day, after a particularly heated meeting with the military, the princess found herself alone in the garden outside the base. She sat on a bench, staring at the flowers that grew around her. She had always loved nature and the beauty of Earth's plants gave her a sense of comfort. She wasn't sure how much longer she could stay in this place. She wasn't sure if she was truly welcome, or if her stay was just a temporary solution to a much larger problem. The world outside was filled with uncertainty. But in that moment, she realized something important. She had a choice. She didn't have to follow in her father's footsteps. She didn't have to carry the weight of an empire that had been lost. She could choose her own path. Admiral Williams arrived, just as the princess was lost in her thoughts. She sat beside her, offering a quiet smile. "You look lost in thought," Williams said gently. The princess smiled back, though it was filled with uncertainty. "I was thinking about everything that's happened. About my father, about my people, and about this new life I have here." Williams nodded. "It's a lot to take in. But remember, you're not alone. We're all trying to figure this out together." Now? The princess looked up at the stars once more. "Do you think peace is possible?" Admiral Williams took a deep breath. "I do. But it won't be easy. We all have to work for it." And in that moment, the princess knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. There would be challenges, and there would be obstacles. But as long as she kept moving forward, she would find her place in this new world, a world that was beginning to unite. One step at a time, days turned into weeks, and the alien princess, whose name was Lyra, continued to settle into life. On Earth, her presence, once met with skepticism and fear, had slowly begun to shift. While many still questioned the wisdom of keeping her on Earth, some started to see her as a figure of hope, a living reminder that peace could be possible. Even after the bloodshed, Admiral Williams had kept a close eye on her. She was determined to make sure Lyra's stay would be a success. The two had spent many hours together, talking about the differences between their worlds and the similarities they shared. Lyra was always quiet, always thoughtful, and though she spoke little about her past, it was clear she had witnessed far more than her fair share of hardship. Over time, Admiral Williams began to notice a change in Lyra. She wasn't just the daughter of the alien king anymore. She was becoming a person who was beginning to care about Earth and its people. Williams admired her strength. Lyra had shown a great deal of courage just by being there, living in a world where her people had once been enemies. One evening, the two women sat together in a quiet room in the base. The evening was calm, and the stars outside the window twinkled softly in the night sky. Lyra had been learning more about Earth's culture, its music, its literature, its art. But tonight she seemed distracted. "You've been quiet," Williams remarked. "Watching?" Lyra gazed out the window. "What's on your mind?" Lyra turned to her, her purple eyes reflecting the light from the stars. "I'm thinking about what you said the other day. About peace. You believe in it, don't you? You believe it's possible." Admiral Williams smiled gently. "I do, but it's not something that happens overnight. It takes time, effort, and a lot of trust. Both sides have to be willing to listen." Lyra nodded slowly, as if weighing her words carefully. "I want to believe that, but it's hard. I've seen so much destruction, and it was all done in the name of what we thought was right. My people believed that power would bring peace, that domination was the only way to control the galaxy. But look where that got us. It's not easy to change beliefs, especially when they've been held for so long," Williams said. "But you're here now. You don't have to follow the same path as your father." Lyra's expression softened. "I don't want to be like him. I never wanted this. but I don't know how to undo everything he did. Can I really make a difference? You already are, Williams said, her voice steady. By being here, by choosing to be part of this, you're showing everyone that things can be different. And that's how change begins. The room fell silent for a moment as Lyra reflected on Williams's words. It was true just by standing there, speaking with Admiral Williams. She was doing something her father never had. She was reaching across the divide, trying to build a bridge where there was once only war. Over the next few days, the bond between the two women grew stronger. Lyra began to trust Williams more, sharing her fears and doubts. It was the first time in years that she felt like she could speak openly without fear of judgment or manipulation. She had always been trained to lead, to carry the weight of an empire, but now, for the first time, she felt as if she could just be herself. One afternoon, as they walked through the base, Williams glanced at Lyra. "There's something I've been wondering about," she said, breaking the silence. "You've shared a lot about your people, but I'm curious about you. What is it that you want, Lyra? What do you dream about?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. It was a question she hadn't really asked herself in years. She had always been too focused on duty, on the future of her people, to think about what she wanted for herself. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I've never really had the chance to dream. My whole life has been about what I was supposed to do, what I was meant to be. But now, I don't know what to believe anymore." Williams smiled kindly. "Maybe that's okay. Maybe you don't have to have all the answers right now. You've been through a lot. Take your time. Know that you don't have to do this alone." The words hit Lyra deeply. She had never known peace. She had always been the heir to an empire, the daughter of a king who believed in strength through conquest. But now, here she was, standing on Earth, talking to a woman who was offering her something entirely different: understanding, compassion, and the possibility of a new beginning. That night, as Lyra lay in bed, she thought about everything that had happened. The journey ahead was unclear, filled with challenges and uncertainty. But one thing was certain: she had started to believe in the possibility of change. And perhaps for the first time in her life, she had begun to believe in herself. In the days that followed, Lyra became more active in learning about Earth. She worked with human scientists, exploring new technologies and helping to bridge the gap between their worlds. She even began to engage with the people of Earth directly, visiting schools and speaking with students, sharing her story and learning from theirs. It wasn't easy. There were still many who didn't trust her, who saw her only as the daughter of the alien king. But with each passing day, Lyra's presence began to change the way humanity viewed her, not as an enemy, but as a person. A person who, despite her past, was determined to build a future where both humans and aliens could coexist. And with that, a small but important piece of hope was born. A hope that perhaps peace was not only possible, but worth fighting for. Lyra sat quietly in her quarters, staring at the message from her father once more. It was difficult to ignore the gravity of his words. Despite the growing determination in her heart, she had chosen to stay on Earth, to stand with the humans. But every day, the shadow of her past seemed to grow larger. She had been raised to believe in the strength of the empire her father had built, in the idea that might would always bring peace. But now, standing on a planet where peace was valued above all else, she began to question everything she had been taught. Could she really turn her back on her father's legacy? Could she build something new, something better, without his approval? It was late in the evening, and Lyra was alone, deep in thought. She had spent the day with Admiral Williams and other human diplomats, discussing possible steps toward intergalactic cooperation. She had learned so much about Earth's history, its struggles and triumphs. But as much as she had come to appreciate this new world, part of her still felt torn. Her father's empire had been powerful. It had been feared. And the idea of giving that up, of turning her back on everything she had known, was hard to accept. She heard a knock on the door and quickly wiped away the thoughts that threatened to consume her. The door opened, and Admiral Williams stepped inside. "You're still up?" Williams asked gently. her voice soft as she noticed the tired look in Lyra's eyes. "I couldn't sleep," Lyra replied, looking out the window at the stars. "There's so much on my mind." Williams took a seat beside her, watching the stars for a moment before speaking. "I know it's not easy. You're not just fighting for Earth's future. You're fighting for your own, too." Lyra nodded, but there was a deep sadness in her eyes. "I want to believe in this world, in what we're trying to build here, but sometimes it feels like I'm just pretending. I don't know how to let go of the past." Williams looked at her with understanding. "You don't have to let go of the past, Lyra. You just need to accept that the future is what matters. You can't change what your father did, but you can choose what you do now." Lyra's gaze shifted to the Admiral, a flicker of hope crossing her face. "But what if I make the wrong choice? What if I fail?" "You won't fail," Williams said firmly. "You've already done more than most could ever dream of. You're here, trying to make a difference. That's what matters." Lyra turned her gaze back to the stars. "But what if my father doesn't accept that? What if he comes for me?" "He will," Williams said, her voice full of certainty. "We knew this wouldn't be easy. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." The words comforted Lyra, but the fear still lingered. Her father's empire was vast, and his influence reached far beyond what the humans could see. No doubt that he would come for her if he felt threatened. And if he did, what would happen to Earth? What would happen to the fragile peace they had fought so hard to create? The next morning, Lyra was summoned to a meeting with the world leaders. The situation had become more tense in the past few days. While some factions on Earth supported her, there were still many who feared the consequences of keeping her there. Rumors had begun to spread that the alien king was planning something. His daughter's presence on Earth was seen as a potential catalyst for war. As Lyra entered the meeting room, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. The human leaders sat around a large table, their expressions serious. It was clear that the time for discussions was over. Decisions would need to be made. "Lyra," Admiral Williams began, "we need to talk about the future. There are concerns among the world leaders that your father may have a plan to regain control. His forces are still a threat." Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I know the risks. I've been hearing from my father. He wants me to return to him, to help him rebuild his empire. But I can't go back. I won't." The room fell silent. Everyone was waiting for her to explain, to tell them what her decision meant. Lyra could feel the weight of their eyes on her, the pressure of the moment. "I've made my choice," she continued. "I'll stay here. I'll help you. And I will work toward the peace we've talked about. But I can't do it alone." Admiral Williams nodded, her face filled with pride. "You're not alone. We're all in this together. But we need to prepare. We need to make sure that we're ready for whatever comes next." The leaders agreed. They began discussing plans for Earth's defense, as well as strategies for maintaining the peace. But Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something far worse than she could imagine. The alien forces were still out there, and her father's empire was not one to give up easily. As the meeting concluded, Lyra stood up and walked outside, her mind racing. She was determined to fight for Earth, to make a future where peace was possible. But deep down, she knew that her father would stop at nothing to get her back. And that fear, that uncertainty, still clung to her heart. Later that night, as Lyra stood alone in her room, the stars outside seemed colder, more distant. She had made her decision. But the future was uncertain, and the road ahead was filled with challenges. She had chosen to stay on Earth, to stand with the humans. But in doing so, she had made an enemy of the most powerful force in the galaxy. And that enemy would not rest until he had his daughter back. The tension on Earth had reached a boiling point. Lyra could feel it every time she walked into a room, every time she met with Earth's leaders. The fear was palpable, while many had accepted her and hoped that peace was within their grasp. There were still those who saw her as a symbol of danger. The whispers about her father's plans had only grown louder, and no one could ignore the reality. Her father was not going to let her go easily. Lyra knew that her decision to stay on Earth had not been without consequences. She had cut ties with everything she had once known, everything she had once believed. But that was no longer her world. She had chosen a new path, a path toward peace, even if it seemed impossible. The humans she had come to care for had shown her what it meant to fight for something better. She would fight for Earth, for the future they could create together. Admiral Williams had been her closest ally throughout this journey. The Admiral had always believed in her, had always believed that peace was possible. But even Williams could see the growing pressure from the outside world. There were those in the military who were becoming more and more concerned about the potential threat of HFY Alien King's empire. There were rumors of hidden fleets and secret plans, and no one knew for sure what the Alien King was plotting. One morning, Lyra received a message, not from her father, but from a group of her father's loyalists, a faction within his empire that still believed in his vision. The message was a warning. "Return to us, princess. The humans will betray you. Do not trust them. The empire will rise again, and you will be our queen." The words were chilling, and Lyra knew what this meant. The time for hiding was over. The threat was real. Her father's empire was planning something, and she could no longer pretend that she was safe from it. She had to make a choice to stay with humanity or to give in to the power that had once controlled her life. She went to Admiral Williams with the message, her face pale, her heart heavy. "They want me back," Lyra said quietly. "They think I can still lead them, that I can restore the empire. But I won't. I can't go back to that life. I've made my choice." Williams placed a hand on her shoulder, her expression firm. "You're not alone in this. We will stand by you, no matter what. You've already proven that you're not like your father. You've shown everyone that peace is possible. We'll fight for you, and we'll fight for the future you believe in." Lyra looked into her eyes, grateful for the Admiral's unwavering support. Deep down, she knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger struggle. The empire her father had built was not going to let her go easily. And now that they knew she had chosen Earth, they would stop at nothing to bring her back later that day. Lyra addressed a room full of world leaders, her voice steady and strong. She spoke of her decision, of the path she had chosen. She knew that her words would not change everyone's minds, but she had to speak the truth. "I know the risks," she began, looking out over the room. "I know that my father's empire is still out there, and I know that some of you fear what will happen if we do not prepare for what is to come. But I want you to know that I am committed to this peace, to this future. I will fight alongside you. I will fight for Earth, and I will fight for the future that we are building together." Her words hung in the air, and for a moment there was silence. Then, one by one, the leaders began to speak, offering their support, promising to stand by her. It was not unanimous, but the support she had earned over the months was clear. She was no longer just the alien princess. She was a leader, someone they could trust. And with that trust came a sense of hope that the future might still be within reach. The following days were filled with planning and preparation. Earth's military began to fortify its defenses, knowing that they might soon face an invasion from the remnants of the Alien King's empire. Lyra was involved in every step of the process, working closely with the human leaders to ensure that they were ready for whatever came next. She was no longer a figurehead. She was a fighter, and she was determined to prove her worth. But even as they prepared, the threat from her father's empire remained ever present. Lyra knew that no matter how much they prepared, there would always be the unknown, the possibility that they would not be ready for what was coming. And the thought of her father, waiting in the shadows, made her heart heavy. He had never believed in peace. He had believed only in power, in domination. And now his desire for control was turning into a deadly force. One evening, as Lyra sat alone in her quarters, she received another message. This time, it was a direct transmission from her father. His image appeared on the screen, his face stern, his eyes cold. "You have made your choice." "Lyra," he said, his voice heavy with authority, "you have chosen the humans over your people. But know this, you will never escape what you are. You are my daughter, and you will return to me. You are not meant for this weak world. You belong with me, with your people." Lyra stared at the screen, her heart racing. For a moment she felt the familiar pull of her father's words, the weight of his expectations. But then, something shifted inside her. She wasn't that girl anymore. She wasn't the heir to an empire built on war. She was Lyra, the daughter of a king who had chosen a new path. And no matter how hard her father tried, he couldn't take that away from her. "I am not your tool," she said, her voice steady. "I am not your weapon. I have chosen my path, and I will not return to you. Earth is my home now." Her father's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a cold smile. "Then you have sealed your fate, Lyra. The Empire will come for you. There is no escaping what you are." The transmission ended, and for a long moment, Lyra sat in silence. She knew that the battle was far from over, that her father's empire would stop at nothing to reclaim her. But she also knew that she was no longer the person she had been. She had a new purpose, and she was ready to fight for it. The future was uncertain. But for the first time, Lyra felt a sense of peace within herself. She had made her choice. And with that choice came the beginning of a new journey, a journey that she would face not as the daughter of an empire, but as a leader, fighting for the future of Earth and the peace she had always believed in, as weeks turned into months. As Lyra continued to adjust to her new life on Earth, her days were filled with learning and exploration. But there was something growing in her heart, a gnawing feeling of doubt. The people of Earth had accepted her, but they had also expected a lot from her. They believed she was the key to peace, the bridge between two very different worlds. However, Lyra couldn't shake the fear that she was still tied to her father's empire, even though he had promised peace. The memory of the alien king's power, his ambition, and his cruelty lingered in her mind. She was his daughter, after all. Was she truly free from his influence? Or was she just a pawn in a larger game? Admiral Williams had been patient with her, guiding her through the complexities of Earth's culture. But even Williams, for all her kindness, didn't fully understand the weight Lyra carried. She was the daughter of a ruler who had devastated entire worlds, and no matter how much she wanted to change, she could not escape that legacy. One evening, Lyra was alone in her quarters, staring out the window at the stars. The sight was beautiful, calming even, but it also reminded her of everything she had left behind. Her people, her father, the empire that had once been so powerful. And now, she was here on a strange planet trying to build something new. But the questions weighed on her. Was this truly her choice? Or was she still following her father's orders, even from afar? It was during these moments of doubt that a message arrived. It was a private communication, encrypted, and sent from an unknown source. Lyra's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the sender. It was from her father. The message was short but direct. "You have made a mistake, Lyra. Humanity is weak. They will betray you. Return to me. You have no place there." Lyra's hands trembled as she read the message over and over. Words were harsh, cruel even, but they were not unexpected. Her father had always believed in the strength of his empire, in the superiority of his people. To him, Earth was a fragile, insignificant world, unworthy of trust. And now it seemed he had no intention of letting her go. Lyra clenched her fists, her heart pounding. She had spent so many years being molded by her father's beliefs, his expectations. But she had chosen Earth, chosen to build something different. Could she really turn her back on that now? The next day, she requested a private meeting with Admiral Williams. They met in a quiet room, away from the prying eyes of the others. "Admiral, I need to speak with you," Lyra said, her voice heavy with emotion. "I've received a message from my father. He wants me to return to him to leave Earth." Williams looked at her with concern, sensing the weight in her voice on Earth. She had grown, learned, and formed connections with people who genuinely cared for her. She didn't want to go back to a life of war and power struggles. She didn't want to be her father's puppet anymore. "I don't know what the future holds," Lyra said quietly, "but I'm not going back to him. I'll stay here. I'll help you. Help humanity. I have to believe there's more to my life than what he wants for me." Williams smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. "You're making the right choice, Lyra. We'll face whatever comes together." As the days passed, Lyra knew that her decision had set her on a new path. She was still unsure, of what would come next. There were many unknowns, many challenges that lay ahead. But for the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of clarity. She wasn't her father's daughter anymore. She was her own person, and she had the power to shape her own future. But even as she made this decision, the danger wasn't over. Her father's empire was vast, and his influence reached far beyond the borders of Earth. Lyra knew that if he wanted her back, he would not stop until he had her. She had made a choice, but the road ahead would not be easy, and as the shadows of her past loomed over her, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling that the most difficult battle was yet to come.